but last time there was all this squawky noise. So, but right now it's work. It says it's working.
Right.
So I'll just talk a little bit about me for a minute, and you guys
The
don't have to
last
get
time there was
involved
all
in
this
this.
squawky noise, so
There it is.
Well,
There's
there
your
it is.
piece.
I'm
right
hearing
now
the
it's
one
work. It
thing, and
says
I'm
it's
on the other
working.
thing.
Right. Okay,
So
so what's
I'll just
going on
talk a
is you
little bit
probably have
about
yourself on your
me for a
YouTube
minute,
channel and you're
and
just
you guys
walking
don't
through
have to get
something.
involved in this.
You're muted, David.
Ronnie, I paused that other channel on
Yep.
the YouTube, and now I can hear you. I have no idea if we're being recorded or not out there in the land, but let me say a few things. This is the Thinkment channel, and it's kind of a think tank going after Lou Ponte. By the way, another publisher, Ronnie, asked us to do another book on Lou Ponte's management thought. And I said, we already did that for Rutledge. He said, because, I said, well, if you want us to, probably I'll ask Ronnie. Anyway, and what I was thinking about is how much help Lou Ponte really gave me coming out of my shell, because I remember being in his doctoral seminar in 1975 or 76, somewhere in there. And he said, David, these assignments that you're doing, you're about the only one doing them on time. And he said, but I like the storytelling in particular. I think you have this knack for storytelling. You should keep developing that. And I said, oh, okay. And he said, when you try to just dump out theory and organize it, it's kind of interesting, but not that good. So that was his advice to me, and which I then ignored when I went to UCLA as a prof, and I tried to do this imitative scholarship of fitting in to all these different paradigms. And I realized that at that time in the late 70s, um, I'm pretty old, so 77 now. They didn't allow you to use your own voice. You never could use I in a sentence. You had to
Right.
always attribute any idea to five or six other authors in every sentence. So,
Okay, they still do that in some disciplines like
yeah,
mine.
okay. So I had to like pretend to not have an idea
Right.
and then translate my idea, not in the technical word of translate, but I just imitate some authors on the editorial board or whoever I thought was a reviewer, and then say, well, according to Tom Cummings, organizations have this systemic effect or whatever it was. So I became the great imitator. But when I didn't get tenure at UCLA, and I went off on my own to write, well, not write, but start a business and that thing, be an entrepreneur. It occurred to me that I'd sold my soul to the devil, of the academia. So I came out in Loyola Marymount as a walk-on, and that means you're a visiting professor filling in for somebody who's on sabbatical for a semester. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And what happened was I'd made a decision to only do the storytelling in my classes. I'd only speak stories, tell stories like I am now. I'd only write about storytelling. That would be my number one priority. Now, the people at UCLA said, oh, you are never going to succeed, David. My colleagues from UCLA, they said, and doctoral students there, they said, you're going to fail because you've gone to a teaching oriented university at Loyola Marymount. That's a liberal arts university, David. And they expect you to teach there. And you'll never be able to publish because you have no doctoral students to work with. So I took that as a personal challenge, and without any support, money-wise or doctoral students or anything. I did the two articles, the Office Supply Company article and the Disney article in Academy Management Journal. So the two top journals in my field, Administrative Science Quarterly, I scored home runs, you know. I won't tell you the misery that it took me like 4 years to get the Tomorrow Journal article through the paces, maybe 5 years, with two different editors. One saying, "We've never published a qualitative article in the history of our journal, Professor Boji. So I've circled 70 items that I want you to explain in your article." Which I did. I made up 70 definitions for all kinds of things
My God.
with this one editor. And that was after the first editor, 4 go-arounds, 4 review cycles, had accepted the article. But then when he stepped down as editor, the new editor said, "I'm sorry, we're not going to accept your article after all. I'm the editor and I make those decisions." So anyway, but then later in retrospect, the same guy said he thought it was a great piece of work in qualitativeness. Anyway, it was interesting because the article itself was actually part of a book I wrote for undergraduate students. And the whole Tomorrowland metaphor was in there and the drawing that I always used. But it wasn't fleshed out in, in a very specific analysis of Ron Miller and Walt Disney and Michael Eisner, the CEOs at Disney. Anyway, so that period was very freeing in some sense. And I went on to meet Grace Ann and went to take the job at New Mexico State University. And everything kind of collapsed a lot because New Mexico State University is not a top tier university. I don't want to blow anybody's bubble, but it's not a top tier university. But they have more politics than I experienced at UCLA, which was weird. But and anyway, so the teaching approaches that were so very popular at, and I got teacher of the year 6 years in a row at Loyola Marymount, they failed flat. I just fell on my face at New Mexico State University. They didn't want to do experiential learning. They didn't want to work in teams in classrooms. The faculty didn't want anything to do with postmodern. They did seminars in the college against postmodern when I got there. It was really weird, especially by the marketing department. So I kind of weathered those storms for a few years. And, you know, I did in 2000, I did the book they published in 2001 on anti-narrative processes. And later on, I would do the book on Lou Pondy that came out last year sometime, and with Ronnie saving the day and coming and organizing all that material I had, which I really am thankful for. But it wasn't until I retired from NMSU that I realized what a prison my whole career had been. You know, I mean, I had some successes, not bad for that, but I mean, I am trying to free up my writing now. Like I'm writing every day and I'm rewriting the material, having it reorganized. I am working with the AIs. I know people want to shoot you if you work with the AI stuff, but I think there's ways of doing it where you can have creative control, but yet use the technology in particular ways. Like, for example, when I started, it was job control language punch cards, Ronnie. I don't know if you all know what those are, but you punch them on a machine, you get a rack of cards like that. Somebody enters it through their machine, you wait all the next day and you find out you had 3 mistakes in your job control language and you have to do it all again and then run it the next day. It was just mind-boggling that when I went to UCLA, they had worse computers. They had worse computers than University of Illinois. I was at University of Illinois had the Cyber, and there were individual consoles in a lab, but you could do your whole writing in there. When I went to UCLA, which is supposed to be a bigger, more prestigious university, right? they had primitive technology. They still used IBM 360 job control language. So a friend of mine in the college had started building his own computer, his own desktop, and then the Osborne computer came out, looked like a sewing machine. I don't know. You know what a floppy disk is? It's actually floppy. They
Oh
really,
yeah,
yeah, they held 5K. 5K. You know how much 5K is? I can't
right.
send you my picture in 5K. A two-page document would be 5K these days. So you had one floppy for the software, and then second floppy for the document. And then I got a K Pro and a K Pro 2, and those were a little better. I think you went up to 10K or something. It was a little bit better. And then eventually I got further and further. But my point is that technology really helped me along. Like I started off with a Remington typewriter, took it to school every day, took it to university every day, and then I got my Osborne and the K Pro and the laptop. And eventually, I'll confess, I can't spell worth shit, you know. In fact, I couldn't even spell shit for about 10 years, you know.
There's
Spelled
an
it
I in it.
wrong. Because
So
I never
from
went
what
to
I'm
high school
hearing,
very much. I skipped high school pretty much. It was boring. I didn't go.
so what
But
I'm hearing, David, is that this AI, you're really feeling guilty about that.
I'm feeling a little
And
guilty, but I'm feeling
yeah,
good about it.
and don't, because at this point I think AI, first of all, I think there's going to be some throttling, if you will, on some of the AI. I mean, there was some stuff yesterday about that with some new laws. But secondly, I think that after a while, after doing it over and over and over again, I think we're going to begin to see that AI is it might be helpful in certain areas and not others. And I
Hmm.
think that what we're going to see is people are going to be returning to organic stuff. Technology is not going to save us,
No, it doesn't.
right? It doesn't save us, right? But
Yeah, it does not.
we're going to be returning back into a more organic way, and perhaps with this integration, we're going to find new words, as you were talking about,
Yep.
right? We're gonna have new perhaps even forms, like, that we're gonna be excelling in.
Oh, yeah.
So no, there have to be, like, I'm not really keen on learning a lot of AI because I don't find that it's real useful for me right
Well,
at the moment.
yeah, I
But
where
when
you
it
are, I think
does,
that's perfect. Yeah.
yeah, and but we have to have people who do like what you're doing and what Ronnie's doing, that immerse themselves in that, and then can be the experts to tell us.
Well, when I was at UCLA, they didn't have spell check. There was no spell
Right?
check those days. So, I mean, I
Right?
struggled. I couldn't succeed at publishing very well. But when by the time I was at Loyola Marymount, spell check was available. You could spell check your document. Man, that just saved my bacon. But let me show
Right.
you what Ronnie's do here. The um, the thing that he's been working on with me a little bit. Um, okay, so I'm just gonna. Okay, all right. So let's see. I'll go back to my Zoom. Okay, I don't know if I'm showing anything or not because. Um,
You're showing
Yeah.
the
Oh,
YouTube
now I can
video.
see it. I couldn't get out of the two Zoom windows. Okay, so this is the novel. It's a tentative title. It's Extinction of Earth's Superorganisms, Quantum Storytelling Game Book. A game book is it has multiple endings at the end of each chapter. And one of the things that changed today in Chat GPT is you can't do these images anymore. And it's the same, I noticed all over. So that's one of the big changes. Here's an
But
outline.
you mean you can't actually put put the image that's right there that you developed through AI, I'm
Right.
assuming. You can't do those anymore.
Yeah, between yesterday and today, and I don't know if it's a permanent change, but AI is not letting you do images. It's sending you to a program that costs you money and it can't even do
Wow.
this well. Anyway, let's not dwell on the
Really?
negative. So
No,
first,
no, no. I think it's very interesting because they're putting controls on memes, basically.
I'm just going to jump to the fourth chapter because I think it's the one that was most developed that I did a draft on. So here's an image, a submarine, and the thought was to go do a voyage with a submarine. And Jerry, you're in there. If you want to keep your name in there or not, or you want to have an alias, let me know. And I'm in there and a couple of others. And so there's a dialogue, and essentially, uh, I won't take you through the dialogue. I'll just sort of tell you a little bit about it. Um, let's see. Okay. Wonder if
That
I.
kicked me out, whatever happened.
Okay, I'm right here. Okay, there's one. There's two. I'm trying to get back to the screen where I can actually see you. Oh, stop share. That'll work. Okay, good. All right, there you go. All right, so we're back. Essentially, that particular chapter, I made it like you leave the port of Long Beach, California. We've got a big ship and a submarine and divers, and we're going to go down to where there's this one of the many superorganisms in the ocean, dive down, and they're the ones that eat the microbes. They're the ones that eat methanes. They're microbes that eat methane. And they've been having problems, so they're deteriorating as a colony. And it brings people into one superorganism rather than all of the superorganisms. And and then you have choices of the next.
Okay, so wait a minute, David. Okay, so I, this makes no sense to me. I haven't read the new one yet, but this makes no sense to me since microorganisms, the colonies of microorganisms actually communicate in biosemiotics. I don't know which chapter it is, probably three or four in
Four. Well, chapter one is
okay.
the Gaia.
So so
Yeah.
okay. And so the biosemiotics, they communicate endo and exo communication with other microorganisms that the other colonies. There's no such thing. Okay, so this might be helpful. There's no such thing as a single microbe. Like they have to have a
Oh yeah,
microbe is always
yeah,
in colony. Okay.
yeah, I
So
agree.
then those make up superorganisms, right?
Right.
Like they're within there. So if you reduce it down to the monad again, the one,
Well, I'm not
I'm
talking
not
about one
understanding.
micro. I'm talking about the superorganisms that eat methane. You know.
Okay, but they are, but they're okay. So they're. Are you sure? Is that the science? Are they superorganisms or are they
Yeah, they're called
microcolonies?
superorganisms, and
Okay,
they're in
so so
several oceans. Yeah.
so, and they're having problems eating the methane.
Well, the colonies are not doing as well as they were doing a decade ago. Put it that way. That's the science.
Oh, and they communicate. I mean, so they communicate their
It,
distress.
yeah, in the
Is
ways
that
that
what?
Jerry said, yes. And then if the colonies of superorganisms deteriorate further, it has consequences for extinction.
Oh, I see.
And this is something that's going on right now. Like these superorganisms that used to eat the methane are no longer functioning correctly, and therefore are they going extinct or are
No, they're
they
not up to the extinct level yet, but you can see a trend as a science fiction writer. You can see, well, if you extrapolate this out two
okay,
decades, it's
but
going
I'm
to be
just talking
problems.
the science itself,
Yeah.
because I'm really confused here, is that they are on an extinction trajectory. Is that correct?
If you project it out several decades, I would say yes. But
You
right
see, I
now,
mean,
it's not.
are there
So
like mechanisms, you know? I mean, so there are, from what I understand, they are in distress, they're in a panic, so to speak, right? But then, you know, nature doesn't, I mean, nature has, you know, these healing mechanisms too,
Oh,
right? I mean,
sure,
like a
up to a
defense
point.
mechanism, you
Up
know,
to
it's
a
like
point.
what do they do once they
Well,
realize, oh my God, we're in trouble? I mean, do they send like an SOS to other,
well,
you know,
if you take the reefs, the Grand Reefs around Australia,
yeah?
the
those reefs are
bleaching.
dead, pretty much dead. Now, is anybody doing anything about it? Yeah, there's a lot of news reports and scientific studies, etc. But you can't bring them back once they're dead. You know what I mean?
No, but what I
Well,
mean is, you know, but
now
I mean,
that's
I'm not
not okay.
talking
So
about them being dead yet, but you know, like, I mean, I guess what I'm wondering about is, you know, there's a point of view of the humans, right? But then, you know, I mean, if we're gonna go into fiction, what is the point of view of, you know, these superorganisms? You know, I mean, do they just take it and say, oh my God, you know, we're gonna die, we're gonna die? But I mean, isn't there some kind of a,
Yeah,
you
the
know,
well,
that
I
reefs
mean,
have been
that's
dying for
that kicks
years and
in,
years.
you
you
know, to
know, I think we have to
Coral
follow the
is,
science on this, David, because, okay, so with Myra J. Hurd's work and with symbiogenesis and with the symbionts, right? The methane eating, I don't know anything about them, but apparently you've read the science about them,
I have,
right?
I
Okay,
have read. Yeah.
is there no longer enough methane for them to eat or
Oh,
oil
there's
or
plenty of
whatever it is
methane,
they're
but if they stop eating it, if they don't eat it in the quantities that they have been, then more methane is hazardous to the health of many, many species,
okay,
including
and but
humans.
then
right,
why are
right,
they
right.
not eating as
Please,
much?
Sabine, can I speak for a moment? Just
Sure.
for a moment. Thank you. And then I'm going to go. Um, okay, so David, in terms of the science itself, I don't know that this is a great topic for science fiction because we don't yet know why the organisms are no longer eating the methane that they're supposed to be eating. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Well, let's just say it's slowed down. That if the colonies are not robust and healthy, they can't do their job.
And what makes them robust and healthy is eating the methane or
Well, I know what makes them not healthy is the level of pollution in the ocean,
okay,
the level of waste in the planet that Myra J. Hurd writes about, for
right.
example, that this is not good health practice for those
For
particular
these
superorganisms.
microorganisms. And so that needs to come into the story too, David. I mean, I think that this is science itself at this point is this is something that could be amplified. I'm not certain that it's a great topic for the fiction as
Well,
as as
that's
much as I love hearing about all of this, trust me, I do. I think better topics are decisions that managers make, right? I mean, this is part of maybe this, right, where you can
right.
get back to it, but
We can do a chapter on
decisions
that.
that corporations and managers make to make certain that productive symbionts, right, cannot produce or
Oh, yeah.
cannot become
Well,
symbiogenic,
we can
right?
definitely do that.
I mean, but I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around it because I don't know the factual information. The
Well,
factual information itself
yeah.
could serve as an inspiration.
Yeah, that's in the introductory part of the book, and it's not fully developed yet because this is a draft. It's not, but in other books that I've been doing, I have an introductory part of the science. For example, the
Right.
book Ronnie and I are doing now about robotics and AI, the first section goes through what's the cutting edge on robotics, where's it going to be in 10 years, 20 years, what are the different kinds of AI interfaces with robots and things, and what's the state of the art, and where are people faking it. I don't want to say too much since we're on the air right now about that, but
I'm
Right.
thinking
people
about
faking
Star
it.
Trek, right? I mean, they had their science advisors. I mean, we talked about science fiction, but they had scientific advisors.
Oh,
Of
I
course.
yeah. Well, let me just back up a
So,
little bit. Let's start over. Okay. The reason the topic of superorganisms was picked because most people in the general audience have no clue what those are. Most people have
right.
not read Myra J. Hurd or Donna Haraway or Karen Barad, etc. And then most people don't know what are the different kinds and how are they distributed around the earth, what's the relationship of Gaia to these superorganisms, and when they run into, uh, Ronnie's got to take a call. So, the point is to bring them into the science, then bring them in, like, I like your idea, Jerry, of what are the decision makers doing of the corporations and how does their approach to being ecologically irresponsible. How does
Right.
that
Because
affect
they
these
too are
situations?
superorganisms, whether they want to admit it or not. They too are superorganisms, but in this
Oh
case,
yeah,
they're
my tooth.
not,
I got a whole bunch of them right
they,
here.
yeah, they are not, the CEOs, the CFOs, that want to blame shareholders, right, instead of their own actions, right? I mean, I just can't handle it anymore from business people. I'm
I
sorry, but
can't
I'm
either.
just
I'm
like,
not. I'm
I'm like,
retired. I'm out of it.
no, 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 and I agree, and I agree. So they too, including their organizations, are superorganisms that are refusing to communicate, that is the exocommunication with the superorganisms that are actually helpfully, eating the methane and rebalancing and healing the planet,
Correct. Yeah.
right?
I mean, I
So
understand that point. Yeah.
in some ways, we've either got to get a bifurcation going, right? Of that being very distinct and see if we can get some communication going, or tripartite, right? There are ways to do it in a tripartite way, which I actually prefer, but it's much more complex. I mean,
Sure. Well, that's
now you're talking layered writing.
so what I've produced is just like a shell and
Hmm.
some
Hmm.
graphs, and we would start over again with your characterizations as players in this science fiction. Um, and then we draft the first chapter, or maybe the introductory thing about the state of the superorganisms and what they are and what the science says, blah blah blah. And then we would say, well, what should be the first chapter? All I'm saying today is I like the idea of doing a voyage to
Right.
particular parts of the earth
Hmm.
where things are happening, maybe not in the way we want them to be happening.
Well, and I don't disagree with you because I think it's really important to put together. I mean, I really want to work on acoustic fields. That's my directive, for the year. And I think that in some ways it can fit with that because, like, when you talk about the bleached corals, right? These corals, huge organisms, right, had a multiplicity of life in them. I mean, hundreds of thousands of life forms lived
Yeah.
there, right, that they sustained, right? And you want to talk about an acoustic sound hole that was
Oh,
created, and we are not sure why. We are
oh,
not always
absolutely.
sure why. Now, they are having success down in Florida, in some areas of northern Florida, David, with the bleached coral, right? And this, I think, primarily comes out of Woods Hole. My sister was telling me about it recently. And just to let you know that, yes, dead coral cannot, but they are having success of regrowing or a regrowth of a new population of coral in northern Florida. I don't know all of the variables on that, but it's not, I mean, this is kind of we're going to have a foundation of the science and
Okay.
of the corporations. So it's going to require quite a lot of reading and then moving forward with a novelistic sort of Bakhtinian
Okay,
thirding, hopefully, you know.
I will do that.
I think it's great. I mean, you saw what I contributed. I mean, you know, I don't know whether you incorporated that,
I
but
did. I did.
uh,
I
you
loved
know,
it.
David, it was heartbreaking. Heart actually, like I cried, you know. I sat in my home and cried over
Yeah.
a flippin' fiction because bec- because I knew that there was more truth there than what you hear on the news than what you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? I
Oh, I
mean,
know. That's why we're doing this. That's exactly why.
all
Hi,
right, so just
Paul.
to let you know where I'm at.
Welcome to the event. By the way, we are on in the virtual world, so don't say anything against politicians or executives or anything about your wife.
Right now. So if we can develop an outline first, you know, I think it might be helpful.
Sure. I will endeavor to do that. Now, the thing with
Well, call me
developing
and I'll help you. I mean,
with
call me.
these books is you kind of build the platform and the
Mhm.
chapter, then you have multiple paths you can go from there. And then it's like as a group deciding, well, which paths do we want to do next and next. I don't know if you can
So is it kind of like Grace
do the
Ann's
whole
Tribal
outline.
Wisdom? Remember Tribal Wisdom, the way that she put that out there
Yeah.
with the questions at the tail end of the chapter?
Yeah, it's like that.
It's
Yeah,
like
like
that.
that.
Okay, interesting. No, I mean, I think that that's an interesting pedagogy, actually.
Yeah, and the game board is, or a game book is called an adventure game book is you get to the end of the chapter, you're the reader. Now you're one of the people in the
Yeah,
play. And
yes.
it'll say, okay, now you were an onlooker, but now are you going to get involved in this and talk to corporations? Are you going to get involved and learn the science? Are you going to get involved and do this? Which of the three things do you want to do next? Then the reader
Mhm, mhm.
chooses, and all the
And
three paths are available, but the reader chooses one. And then,
so we'll I'm assuming that this is going to be an online book,
no,
right?
it's published.
It'll be
Published.
published like
It'll
hardbound
say
or
turn to
whatever.
page 250 if you make this choice, turn to page 75 if you made that choice, turn to page 50 if you made that choice. So it works that way.
So are you going to need to have republishing rights on articles that, like a scientific article that takes you to the bleaching of
No,
the
I just reference
whatevers,
them,
or
just
is
summarize
there?
them,
Okay,
reference and
I
footnote.
see. Okay,
That's what I
okay,
do. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're talking, Paul, and I want to cut off this other video. So let me see, because I think that's enough for